You ever get that feeling when someone is just waiting for the smallest excuse to make your life miserable? That's exactly how it felt the day I realized my neighbor, who everyone in the neighborhood not so lovingly referred to as HOA Karen, had a new obsession and, unfortunately, I was her target. It all started with something so small, so ridiculously petty, you'd almost laugh if it wasn't so irritating. My trash can? Not piles of junk in my yard. Not a broken-down car in my driveway. Just my one city-issued regulation-sized trash can that I rolled out to the curb twice a week like everybody else. The first time it happened, I thought maybe it was just the wind. I came home from work and found my trash can on its side, garbage, scattered across the sidewalk like someone had shaken it out for fun. I sighed, cleaned it up, and didn't think too much of it. But then it happened again, and again. Every time, the same thing. My trash can knocked over garbage rolling into the street, sometimes even ripped bags spilling into my lawn. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was teenagers messing around, or maybe the sanitation workers weren't careful when they put it back, but the pattern was too perfect. It only happened on days when Karen was home. You see, Karen wasn't just any nosy neighbor. She was the self-appointed sheriff of the HOA. And I mean self-appointed. She wasn't even on the board. She didn't have any official power. But that didn't stop her from strutting around the neighborhood with a little clipboard, jotting down notes, snapping pictures of people's yards, and mailing friendly reminders about every tiny little thing she didn't like. And apparently, she didn't like me. One morning, I caught her. I had just pulled out of my driveway to head to work, and in my rearview mirror, I saw Karen striding down the sidewalk in her oversized sunglasses, clutching her little clipboard like it was a badge. Without even glancing around to see if anyone was watching, she walked right up to my trash can, gave it a little push with her foot, and sent it tumbling over into the gutter. I couldn't believe it. I actually stopped my car, put it in park, and just sat there staring at her through the mirror. She didn't even look guilty. She actually smiled. That was the moment I realized this wasn't some accident. This was deliberate. Karen had decided my trash can was somehow offensive to her perfect little vision of the neighborhood. And instead of coming to me like a normal human being, she was playing these childish, passive-aggressive games. At first, I thought maybe I could reason with her. Later that day, I walked over and knocked on her door. She opened it just a crack, peeking out like I was some unwanted salesman. "Hi, Karen," I said as politely as I could manage. "I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. I notice my trash can keeps getting knocked over, and I happened to see you near it this morning. Is there some kind of problem with where I'm putting it?" Her lips curled into this tight little smirk. "Your trash can is unsightly. It lowers property values. The HOA guidelines are very clear. About curb appeal," I blinked at her. "Karen, it's trash pickup. Everyone on this street has their cans out. That's what you do." She tilted her head, still smirking. "Some of us care about appearances. If you wanted to keep things neat, you'd find a better place for it." And with that, she shut the door in my face. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just about a trash can. This was about control. Karen had picked me as her target, and she wasn't going to stop until I gave in. But here's the thing about me, I don't give in. If she wanted a war over something as stupid as a trash can, then fine. She just picked the wrong neighbor to mess with, and what Karen didn't know, what she couldn't have possibly expected, was that I already had an idea forming in the back of my mind, a way to turn her little game into something she'd never forget. Because sometimes, the best way to deal with a bully is to set a trap. What Karen didn't realize was that every time she pushed over my trash can, she was just pushing me closer to building the perfect revenge. And when I finally put my plan in motion, she wasn't just going to see my trash can, she was going to wish she had never touched it. Asterisk, they say, the smallest spark can start the biggest fire. And in my case, that little spark was the sound of an empty trash can clattering against the pavement one Wednesday morning. I remember it so clearly because I wasn't supposed to be home that day. I had taken a half day off work to get some projects done around the house, and while sipping coffee at my kitchen table, I heard it. That unmistakable thud. I pulled the blinds just enough to peek out, and there she was, Karen, walking away. From my like, she'd just finished watering her roses. She didn't even look back. No hesitation, no shame. Just a smug little strut back to her house across the street. That's when it clicked for me. This wasn't just a control issue. This was entertainment for her. She was getting some kind of sick satisfaction from knowing she could disrupt my day in the pettiest way possible. And once I realized that, I also realized something else. She wasn't going to stop. The following week, I decided to test her. I positioned my trash can perfectly flush against the curb, no garbage visible, lid locked down tight. Honestly, it looked like something straight out of a city sanitation commercial. There was nothing she could possibly complain about, and yet, when I came home that evening, it was on its side. Again, the lid had popped open, and a few bags were torn, spilling old leftovers and coffee grounds across my driveway. It wasn't just about knocking the can over anymore. Now she wanted to create a mess. I stood there, garbage bag dangling from my hand, and felt this hot wave of anger roll over me. For a moment, I wanted to march right across the street, bang, on her door, and give her a piece of my mind. But then I remembered the smug little smirk she'd given me last time. That smugness was her fuel. Confronting her wasn't going to stop her. It was exactly what she wanted. So instead, I stayed calm. I cleaned up the mess, rolled the can back into place, and decided it was time to get smarter. The next morning, I ordered a cheap motion sensor camera online. I figured if I had hard evidence, the HOA or even the city could get involved. I mounted it on the corner of my garage, angled perfectly at the trash can. Sure enough, within 2 days, I had crystal clear footage. Karen strutting up the sidewalk, glancing around briefly, and then with one swift push of her foot, toppling the can. She actually laughed while she did it. I must have watched that video 12 times, each time my jaw tightening a little more. Evidence was good, but it still didn't solve my problem. If I reported her, she'd deny it, spin some story about how she was just helping or accidentally bumped into it, and I'd be stuck in an endless cycle of HOA meetings and neighborhood drama. No, I needed something better, something that would end this game once and for all. But first, I wanted to push her a little, to see how far she was willing to go. The next trash day, I left the can out a little longer than usual, well into the evening. I sat on my porch, pretending to scroll through my phone, while really just waiting. And sure enough, Karen came strolling by. She hesitated when she saw me sitting there, gave me this tight little fake smile, and kept walking. But as soon as I went inside and peeked from the window, she doubled back. One quick shove of her foot, and the can went over again. This time, though I was ready, I stormed out of my front door so fast she nearly jumped out of her skin. "Karen," I barked. She froze mid-step, caught red-handed. "What exactly are you doing?" I demanded, pointing at the trash can on the ground. Her face went pale, then quickly twisted into indignation. "Oh, please, your trash can was already like that. I was just trying to move it out of the way." "Funny," I said, crossing my arms, "because I've got footage of you doing the exact same thing every single week. Want to see it?" That smirk faltered, just for a second, but then, just as quickly, she snapped back into her usual arrogance. "I don't know what you think. You saw, but I suggest you check the HOA guidelines. Trash cans aren't supposed to sit out all day. Maybe you should focus on following the rules instead of spying on your neighbors." And with that, she turned on her heel and stormed back to her house. I stood there, staring after her, fists clenched at my sides. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. She knew I had proof, and she still didn't care. In her mind, she was untouchable. That's when I realized something important. Karen wasn't going to stop because she thought she had the upper hand. She thought the rules, the HOA, the whole neighborhood, everything was on her side. She thought I was powerless, but she was wrong, because what Karen didn't know was that I'd already been working on something behind the scenes, a little project in my garage, a project that would take her petty little game and turn it into the last mistake she'd ever make against me. And the best part? When it finally happened, she wouldn't even see it coming. Karen thought she'd won. She thought knocking over my trash can was just a game she could play forever. But what she didn't realize was that I was done playing games. The next time she touched that trash can, she was going to regret it, and this time, the whole neighborhood would see it too. You ever reach that point where you're done talking, done reasoning, done waiting for someone to do the right thing? That's where I was. Karen had pushed me one too many times, literally, and I wasn't just going to sit back and keep sweeping garbage off my driveway like some obedient neighbor. No. If she wanted to play dirty, I was going to play smarter. And that's when I came up with it, the trash can she'd never see coming. It started with a trip to the hardware store. Nothing fancy, just a heavy-duty rolling bin, some industrial-strength hinges, a steel frame, and a few extras that would make it stand out. But the most important piece wasn't something you could buy off the shelf. It was the little motion surprise I was rigging inside. I spent a Saturday afternoon in my garage, tools scattered across the workbench, humming to myself while I worked. If Karen had looked out her window that day, she probably thought I was just fixing up a lawnmower or tinkering with home repairs. But what I was really building was a one-man fortress disguised as an ordinary trash can. The base, reinforced so it wouldn't tip easily. I bolted a weighted steel plate to the bottom, hidden beneath the plastic. I wanted Karen to try her usual little kick and tip, move on to realize it wasn't budging. But that was only part one. Part two was the fun part. I installed a compact, motion-activated air horn inside the lid, the kind you hear at a football game loud enough to make you jump out of your skin. And to make it even better, I wired it so that the second the can tilted past a certain angle, the horn would go off right in her face. I tested it out in my driveway, cautiously tilting the can. Bah! The sound blasted through the street like a foghorn. My heart nearly leaped out of my chest and I was the one expecting it. I couldn't help but laugh. Oh, this was going to be good. But I wasn't done. The final touch was a discreet GoPro mounted inside the can, peeking out through a tiny drilled hole. That way, not only would Karen get the scare of her life, but I'd also have it all on video. Hard evidence? Proof she couldn't talk her way out of Dot. By the time I rolled my new creation out to the curb on trash day, I almost felt giddy, like a hunter waiting for the trap to spring Dot all morning. I kept peeking out the window, pretending to read the paper, pretending to drink coffee. The sun climbed higher, cars drove past, a few neighbors set out for work. And then, there she was. Karen, Dot, her oversized sunglasses glinting in the light, clipboard tucked under her arm, walking with that same self-righteous strut like she owned the entire block. She slowed when she reached my driveway, giving the can a long, disapproving look, like she was deciding which imaginary rule it was breaking today. Then, without a second's hesitation, she raised her foot and gave it a shove. Nothing, the can didn't budge an inch. She frowned, stepped back, and tried again, this time harder. Still nothing. I could see her frustration building. She muttered something under her breath, then gave it a real kick. And that's when it happened. But yeah, the air horn exploded like a battleship siren, echoing down the street. Karen screamed, stumbling backwards so fast she nearly tripped over the curb. Her sunglasses flew off, clattering on the pavement. She clutched her chest, gasping like she'd just seen a ghost. I had to slap my hand over my mouth to keep from laughing out loud. From inside my living room, I could hear it perfectly, the sound, her yelp, everything. The GoPro was catching every angle, every second of her meltdown. But Karen wasn't done embarrassing herself. Oh no! She looked around wildly, trying to see if anyone had noticed. And of course, a couple of neighbors had. Mr. Dawson across the street was watering his lawn. The Peterson kids were playing basketball in their driveway. They all stopped, staring at Karen as she scrambled to pick up her sunglasses and storm away. Her face beat red. Dot. She didn't even glance back at the can, didn't try to mess with it again, just stomped off, muttering angrily to herself. I replayed the footage later. I almost cried laughing. The moment the horn went off, her eyes bugged out like a cartoon character. I must have watched it 20 times, each time funnier than the last. But here's the thing, I wasn't done yet. Because if I'd learned anything about Karen, it was that she wasn't going to give up after one scare. She was going to come back, probably angrier than before. And that meant I had to be ready. So I uploaded the footage to a private folder, saved copies on multiple drives, and even sent one to my buddy who works in tech, just to be safe. If Karen tried to escalate this, I wanted the receipts ready to go. And sure enough, it didn't take long. The very next day, I got a knock at my door. When I opened it, there stood Karen, arms crossed, lips pursed, fury radiating off her like a heat wave. "Do you think this is funny?" she hissed. I leaned against the doorframe, trying my best to look casual funny. "What do you mean?" "You know exactly what I mean," she snapped. That thing you did to your trash can nearly gave me a heart attack." I shrugged. "Well, maybe you shouldn't be messing with other people's trash cans." Her face twisted with rage. I am a representative of the HOA. I was enforcing community standards. I couldn't help it, I laughed, right in her face. Karen, you're not on the HOA board. You don't enforce anything. You're just a nosy neighbor with too much time on her hands. Her jaw dropped. For once, she didn't have a snappy comeback. She just glared at me, sputtered, then stormed off my porch. But as I closed the door, I knew it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Karen wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully. She was the type to double down, and that meant the real showdown was still coming. Karen thought she could scare me into backing down, but now she was the one rattled, humiliated, and exposed. The trash can had one round won, but round two was coming. And this time, Karen was going to try everything in her power to get even. Some battles are won in silence. Not with fists, not with shouting matches, but with patience, timing, and the perfect setup. By now, Karen had already been humiliated once by my rigged trash can. But I knew her type too well. She wasn't going to walk away licking her wounds. No, she was the kind who doubled down, who tried to claw back control even when the whole neighborhood was laughing at her behind her back. And sure enough, just 2 days later, she tried again. It was late afternoon when I noticed her across the street, standing in her driveway, arms crossed, glaring at my house like she was preparing for battle. Every few minutes, she would pace a little, then look back at my trash can like it was mocking her. She wasn't just annoyed, she was seething. That's when I decided it was time to trigger round 2 of my plan. C. The horn scare was only the first phase. The real masterpiece was still waiting. While Karen thought she was plotting her revenge, she didn't know I had already upgraded my trap. I had swapped out the GoPro for a newer model with live stream capabilities. This time, if she came at my can again, I'd not only record, I'd broadcast it straight to a private YouTube channel I had quietly set up. Just a few clicks, and every neighbor I trusted could have access to the live stream. Why? Because exposing Karen in front of 1 or 2 people wasn't enough. She thrived on the illusion of authority, the idea that the entire HOA respected her little rules. If I wanted this to end for good, I had to rip that illusion apart and let everyone see who she really was. The stage was set. I left my trash can out longer than usual again, making it look like the perfect opportunity for her to strike. I even left my front porch light off so it looked like I wasn't home. Then, from my upstairs window, I settled in with my laptop. Watching the live feed from inside the can, it didn't take long. Karen strutted across the street, looking around carefully. She had ditched the sunglasses and clipboard this time, like she thought going undercover would make her less obvious. She crouched down in front of the can, her face filling the camera lens. For a second, she just stared at it, almost like she was daring it to fight back. Then she reached down with both hands, grunted, and tried to shove it onto its side. And, just like before, the air horn exploded, blasting her full in the face. She screamed so loud the microphone clipped. Bags of groceries she had set down tumbled onto the street, oranges rolling into the gutter. But this time, there was no scrambling away, no quick escape, because the neighbors had seen everything. Remember how I said I live-streamed it? Well, I'd quietly sent the link to a handful of trusted neighbors earlier in the day, with a note, "Next time Karen messes with my trash can, you'll want to see this." And sure enough, within minutes of her meltdown, phones started ringing. Screenshots started flying. The Peterson kids uploaded a reaction video. Mr. Dawson across the street was laughing so hard he dropped his hose, spraying water all over his own shoes. Karen froze, realizing eyes were on her. She spun around wildly, spotted Dawson chuckling, and shrieked, "This isn't funny! He's breaking HOA guidelines!" It's the one in the wrong, but the damage was done. Everyone had seen her. Not once, not twice, but over and over the next morning when she tried to storm the HOA board meeting and lodge a formal complaint against me. The board president interrupted her mid-rant and said, "Karen, are you sure you want to talk about trash cans?" The whole room erupted in laughter. I wish you could have seen her face, the fury, the embarrassment. The way she sat back down, cheeks flushed, lips trembling, unable to come up with a single word. But even that wasn't the final blow. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail, not from the HOA, but from the city sanitation department, It turns out that when my footage of Karen messing with my trash can made its way around the neighborhood, someone forwarded it to the city. And guess what? Tampering with someone else's trash can is actually considered illegal interference with city property. That's right. My petty little neighbor wasn't just a nuisance anymore. She was a lawbreaker. The letter explained that she had been fined for unauthorized interference with municipal waste containers and given a written warning that further actions could lead to legal consequences. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the letter in my coffee. Karen must have gotten hers the same day, because for the first time since I'd moved into that neighborhood, I didn't see her outside at all. No strutting around with her clipboard, no casual strolls past my driveway. Nothing. She had gone completely into hiding, and every time I rolled my trash can out to the curb after that, I felt this little rush of satisfaction, because I knew she was watching from behind her blinds, seething, powerless, and terrified to go near it again. My trash can had gone from being her favorite target to being her biggest nightmare. Karen thought she was untouchable, the queen of the HOA. But now, thanks to one little trash can, she wasn't just humiliated, she was fined, exposed, and dethroned. And yet, the sweetest part of this story wasn't the scare or even the fine. It was the way fate delivered the final twist. The one she never saw coming. Funny thing about people like Karen, they can dish it out all day long, but the moment the tables turn, they vanish. For weeks after that fine from the city, she stayed quiet. No clipboard, no strutting down the sidewalks, no fake HOA reminders. Stuffed in neighbors' mailboxes, for the first time since I'd moved in, the neighborhood felt normal. But here's the thing about silence. It doesn't always mean surrender. Sometimes it means someone's plotting. And knowing Karen, I figured she was probably stewing behind those curtains, waiting for her chance to strike back. Turns out, I was right, but not in the way I expected. One crisp Saturday morning, I was hauling some tools out of my garage when I noticed a moving truck parked across the street. At first I thought maybe someone was visiting, but then I saw Karen's husband, who I'd only ever seen in brief glimpses, usually with the weary look of a man who had given up fighting battles long ago loading boxes into the truck. My heart skipped. Was this really happening? I watched as more boxes followed, then furniture, then lamps. Karen appeared once or twice, barking orders, her face red and pinched. But here's the kicker. She wasn't moving into the truck. She was storming around, waving papers in her hand while her husband loaded everything. Later, I'd find out the full story. See, the HOA board had gotten so tired of Karen's antics, especially after the trash can fiasco went viral among the neighbors, that they quietly passed a motion banning her from attending meetings unless she was specifically invited. It wasn't an official removal, but it stripped her of the only power she had left, and her husband. Well, apparently, he'd had enough. He'd sold the house quietly, without making a big announcement, and was moving out. Karen, from what the neighbors pieced together, hadn't even seen it coming. It was the ultimate irony. She'd spent years trying to control everyone else's homes, only to lose her own. When the moving truck finally pulled away, Karen stood in the driveway, screaming into her phone, waving her arms like a stranded shipwreck survivor. But the neighborhood, silent. Nobody came out to comfort her. Nobody offered to help. Everyone just watched from their windows, satisfied, and me. I sat on my porch with a glass of iced tea, watching her meltdown from the best seat in the house. My trash can stood proudly by the curb, lid shut, upright, and untouched. A few weeks later, a new family moved into Karen's old house. Young couple, friendly, always waving hello. They brought cookies to the neighbors, joined the block barbecue. And best of all, never once mentioned trash cans. It's funny how quickly a neighborhood can change when the one person poisoning it is gone. Suddenly, people were friendlier, kids played outside more, and even the HOA seemed less strict. The shadow Karen cast had lifted, and all it took was one trash can and a little creativity. Sometimes, I think back to those first few weeks when I was picking garbage off the street and wondering how I could ever win against someone like her. And then I look at my can, the same one, still reinforced, still hiding a few surprises inside just in case, and I smile, because in the end, it wasn't about the trash can at all. It was about standing up to a bully, about proving that no matter how smug or powerful someone pretends to be, they're never too big to fall. And fall, she did louder, messier, and more publicly than I ever could have planned. So the next time someone asks me if it's really worth fighting over something, as small as a trash can, I just laugh. Because sometimes the smallest battles deliver the biggest victories. And if Karen ever shows up in another neighborhood, clipboard in hand, well, let's just say, I hope their trash cans are ready. Karen thought she could control the entire neighborhood with intimidation and petty power trips. But in the end, it was one trash can, the one she thought she was knocking down, that ended up knocking her down for good. And that, my friends, is karma served curbside.